You have probably been told that Lisbon is the last great European capital left to discover. You have probably heard this from someone who discovered it themselves last summer, which means, by that logic, you are already too late. The city has been hearing this about itself for years. It has stopped being bothered by it. Lisbon sits at the edge of the continent, 7 hills above the Tagus estuary, facing west. The light here is Atlantic light, sea-filtered and particular, and the buildings have absorbed it for centuries. In the morning, white and yellow facades catch it warm. By dusk, the same walls go grey. And yet not everyone who arrived with the recent wave of attention is still here. Not everyone who was already here has stayed. Why does a city with this much to offer manage at the same time to be a city people are being pushed out of? What is life in Lisbon actually like today? The physical city resists simple description. The 7 hills are not a figure of speech. They are a daily reality, and they organize everything. Which neighborhoods feel connected, which feel isolated, where the good views are, and where the stairs seem to go on longer than the map suggests. The Tagus, Tejo in Portuguese, is not quite a river by the time it reaches Lisbon. It is 4 kilometers wide, and the city's entire southern edge faces across it toward the low hills of the Setúbal Peninsula. Ferries cross every hour from a terminal near the old downtown. On clear mornings, the bridge, a red suspension structure completed in 1966 that confuses first-time visitors into thinking they have arrived in San Francisco, seems to disappear into the haze above the water. The Atlantic is 25 kilometers to the west. It is always present. The wind comes off it. The light comes off it. On certain mornings, the smell of salt reaches the streets of Alfama, even when the water is not visible from where you stand. This is a city built at a departure point. That fact has shaped it for 500 years. It shapes it still. Lisbon is not one place. It is several places that share a set of hills and a river, and the differences between them are not superficial. Alfama is the oldest. It predates Portugal as a nation. When the Moors settled on the eastern hill in the 8th and 9th centuries, they called it Alhama, a reference to the hot springs in the rock below. The street plan was never designed. It accumulated over centuries of small decisions made at the scale of a single building. Alleys run at angles that have nothing to do with compass directions. Stairways connect streets at heights a map does not prepare you for. The buildings lean toward each other overhead. In November 1755, on All Saints' Day, An earthquake struck Lisbon while the city's churches were full of candles. The earthquake was followed by a tsunami, then by fires. The destruction across the lower city was close to total. Alfama, built on solid volcanic rock at the top of its hill, survived largely intact. That is why it looks nothing like the rest of Lisbon. It was never rebuilt on the rational plan that replaced everything else. What was rebuilt was the Baixa. The Marquês de Pombal, the king's chief minister, oversaw reconstruction on a new grid. Wide streets, uniform block sizes, a structure that could be built quickly and that allowed the city to recover. The Pombaline Baixa is methodical, slightly austere, and it fills with visitors during the day and empties almost completely by 9 in the evening. West of the Baixa, climbing again, Bairro Alto sits at the top of a hill that is, by Lisbon standards, unusually flat. That flatness matters in a city where every other surface tilts. Bairro Alto was the neighborhood of writers and intellectuals and people who worked late. It is still the neighborhood of late nights, though what happens in those nights has changed. Belem is further west, at the point where the Tagus estuary opens toward the ocean. Vasco da Gama departed from here in 1497 on the voyage that reached India and opened a direct sea route to the spice trade. The Jeronimos monastery was built with the revenues from that trade. The stone is so densely carved with ropes, armillary spheres, navigational instruments, and figures from the Age of Discovery that it takes time to understand the building as a building and not as a three-dimensional map of a century's ambition. The Tower of Belem, at the water's edge, was a fortification and a customs point. Every ship that left for the world passed it on the way out. The mornings in Lisbon have a particular texture. At 7 o'clock, the metal shutters on the coffee shops roll up. By 7:30, the regulars are at their corner table with an espresso and something to read, or with nothing but the espresso and some time. The pastel de nata, the custard tart, is not a tourist food, though it has become one as well. It is a daily thing, practical and quick, consumed standing at a counter in a paper wrapper. The recipe at Pastéis de Belem, the original shop operating from the monastery's old kitchen since 1837, has not been made public in nearly 200 years. The current owners say the formula is known to 3 people. The number 28 tram runs on tracks laid in the early decades of the 20th century. The cars are wooden and yellow, and they creak on the curves through Alfama, and they have become so associated with tourism that Lisbonites who need them for a practical trip now treat them as something to wait behind rather than ride. This is not a problem that resolves easily. The tram is real, the crowd is real, and they occupy the same route. The miraduros, the viewpoints distributed across the hills, work differently from monuments. They require nothing. You can stand above the roof tiles and see the river and the bridge and the far bank. In the evenings, people come with wine in plastic cups. Teenagers sit on the walls. In the mornings, the same spots are nearly empty, and the city from up there looks like something out of a long and serious dream. The midday break has not entirely disappeared from Lisbon. It survives in the older professions and in the neighborhoods that run on a different clock. In summer, the afternoon heat enforces a natural stillness. Between 2 and 4, the city slows. Shops close, streets empty. It resumes later, without urgency. The Mercado da Ribeira was a working produce market for most of its life. Part of it still is, early in the morning before the food hall section opens. The Time-Out Market, which took over the rest of the building in 2014, draws more visitors per year than most Portuguese cities see at their main cultural sites. Whether that is a success or a problem depends on who you ask and where they live. There is a Portuguese word that does not translate cleanly. Saudade. It is usually rendered in English as longing or nostalgia. But nostalgia looks backward at something that existed and is now gone. Saudade is wider than that. It can be for something that happened. It can be for something that never did. It can be for a person who is still alive, for a place you have not yet left, for a version of yourself that existed before a particular moment. The philosopher Eduardo Lourenço wrote that saudade is not simply an emotion that comes and goes. It is, he argued, a structure of experience, a way of being in time that holds absence and presence simultaneously and feels the distance between them. Not sadness, exactly. Something cooler, something that has learned to live alongside its own grief rather than past it. Fado is the music of Saudade. It developed in Lisbon in the early 19th century, in Alfama and the Muraria, among people who lived near departure. Sailors, washerwomen, the families of people who went to sea and came back changed, or did not come back at all. The word fado means fate. The music sounds like what that word holds, a single voice. The Portuguese guitarra with 12 strings, the viola baixo for the low notes, and a room that goes quiet while the song is playing. The lyrics circle around loss, around ships that left and people who did not return, around a city that was once something else. Portugal, in the 15th and 16th centuries, built an empire that reached further than any European power had before. Ships from the Tagus estuary mapped the coast of West Africa, rounded the Cape of Good Hope, reached India and the Spice Islands of Southeast Asia, and crossed the Atlantic to Brazil. For a period, Lisbon was one of the wealthiest cities in the world. Then the empire contracted. Other powers grew stronger. The earthquake of 1755 destroyed the capital. A forced union with Spain that lasted 60 years redirected the country's course. The 20th century brought a long authoritarian government, and in April 1974, a peaceful military revolution and the formal end of the overseas empire. What Saudade names, perhaps, is the accumulated weight of that arc. What it feels like to be a place that stood at the center of the known world, and now stands at the edge of a continent, still facing the same horizon, still unable to stop looking west. Is Lisbon a sad city? It does not feel sad. It feels like a city that has made a kind of peace with distance. The distance between what it was and what it is. That is not the same as grief. It is something harder to name and perhaps more interesting. Between 2014 and 2019, Lisbon's housing costs rose faster than almost any other city in Western Europe. In Alfama and the Moraria, rents in some streets tripled within 5 years. In the Baixa, property values that had been falling since the 1980s reversed sharply. The mechanism was familiar. Short-term rental licenses, known as alojamento local, were issued in large numbers by a city administration that had few other economic tools and saw tourism as the available one. By 2018, some streets in Alfama had more registered tourist apartments than permanent residential households. The neighborhood that survived the earthquake of 1755, that maintained its street plan and social structure across centuries, was finding that it could not survive this. The families who had lived in Alfama for generations, the ones who kept the fado houses running and knew which mechanic to call and which pharmacy stayed open late, found themselves holding on against economics that had no interest in whether they stayed. Some moved to the outer municipalities, Montijo, Palmela, towns within commuting distance. Some held on through rent control on older contracts. The city government has since restricted new short-term rental licenses in the most affected neighborhoods. Whether that was enough and whether it came in time is a question without a clean answer. At the end of the afternoon, when the light flattens and the air cools, the city comes back out. The terraces fill. The miraduros fill. The pastelerias sell the last trays of the day. The Tagus moves west. It always has. The Atlantic sits beyond the estuary, large and indifferent, holding whatever the city projects onto it. People stay in Lisbon. New people arrive. The reasons on both sides are more ordinary than the arguments about the city suggest. It is beautiful, and it is difficult, and it is theirs. Or it is becoming theirs. Or they are not yet sure which. Whether what holds them here is saudade, a longing for a place they are still in, or something simpler, something as ordinary as not wanting to leave, is a question Lisbon does not answer for you.